Okay, so you want to know something about me? I am literally
The king of the world!
yes, I'm literally the king of the world and king of debt payoff. That's literally me, the king of the world. No, but I'm not Leonardo DiCaprio. Sorry. and and the reason that I'm the king of debt payoff is I could pretty much go through easily any situation as long as I have a complete financial profile, information, all your debts in about 30 minutes. I don't know anyone who could do it as fast as me, right? And this is what a lot of people think, right? So let's say like you're a lawyer and you make good income, and a lot of people are like, well, if I made $10,000 a month, I would never be broke, right? That's what a lot of people think. But once you get there, you realize, oh, like being able to handle finances and debt is an actual skill, right? And the reason I say this is because I remember there was a story of a judge in Texas. Actually, let me go back here. Yeah, you guys know who Nathan Milliron is? He got, he was a viral judge. He went viral because he berated an IT worker. And then turns out this guy filed bankruptcy last year for 70K, right? And this guy makes about 180 to 200. So think about that, right? So a lot of times people think, "Oh, if I had made 180, 200, I would certainly be able to handle that." No, 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 no. No, no, no. You got to think of your money as a tool. It only works in the hands of the right people as long as you got the training. You need to get the education. You know how things work, right? I mean, think about this. If you have a tool or sword like Excalibur, Excalibur only works in the hands of the chosen one, right? Like King Arthur. Okay. And by the way, what I was like a little while ago, I was looking at this old 90s cartoon show called King Arthur and the Knights of Justice. Have you ever heard of it? Man, it is so cool because it's about a bunch of football players who travel back in time and then become King Arthur and the Knights. The Knights of Justice. Man, the 90s are so much more creative than whatever we have with today's slob. Football players traveling back in time to become King Arthur at the Knights of Justice. Anyways, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. To pay off debt, folks. That's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna pay off debt. And yeah, and so this is it. It's called the velocity debt payoff method. We used to call it something else, but regulators went hard on another YouTuber who used the word we used to use. It's kind of like Dumbledore. No, not Dumbledore. It's Voldemort. I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, but I think it was a name you couldn't say. Okay, in the Harry Potter universe. All right, so now, so we can see here we have income, expenses exactly the same, and then we have $0 left over in our checking and savings. Now, let me tell you about the average person's social conditioning. Whenever they see $0 left over in their checking and savings, they're meant to feel ashamed. They're like, you have $0 in your checking and savings? Like, yeah. And look at me, I got all this debt, right? I got like 8 credit cards, an auto loan, student loan, a mortgage, and on top of that, I got my personal expenses, $2,700 a month, things I always have to pay for that are not tied to debt, like food, gas, insurance, and all that other good stuff. Like I can't live, right? So you make $10,000 a month and then you're struggling. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the flow of our money and we'll have completely different outcomes, right? So what we're going to do is deliberately not save money. And you might be looking at this left side and the right side and you're thinking, what the F is the difference, right? Like you are literally zero in your checking and savings. All matters. And it's like, no, 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 no. What we're going to do is focus on this cash flow number, and this cash flow number is going to increase when, when we shift the flow of our money and make something called our line of credit as our main operating account, right? So what's a line of credit? It's basically a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. So almost like a credit card, but even easier to use, even though a credit card is technically a line of credit. Okay, so it's very easy to use. So because I could literally go to a bank's website, click a button, and they'll dump that cash right in that instance when I click that button, right, into the checking account. And we're using it as main operating account. Now, I got a question for you all. If you don't know how banking works, right? If you make good money and you have nothing left over your checking and savings because you got all this debt, are you going to, okay, are you going to get a line of credit that's free and clear where there's no balance? The answer to that is no, because banks don't lend money to people who need it, okay? They don't lend money to people who need it. And people understand don't or misunderstand how a bank is supposed to make money, right? They literally think like the bank will be there for you when you need them because that's what the commercials say, right? Like they, I think I heard this something like in Chase or something like that, where it's like, we're your neighborhood friendly bank, Chase Bank, yeah, right. But that's the kind of propaganda or the messages that they kind of send to the television waves, and people fall for it. And the problem is that when you go to a bank when you need money, they'll say no to you because banking is a risk mitigating institution, kind of like insurance, right? Like insurance companies don't want to pay out. That's the whole point of insurance, right? And then with banking, they want to loan to people who are sure bets. People who don't need money are sure bets, right? And the other thing too that you can think about banking is that a lot of times people think like their credit profile is for the consumer. Like I'm looking at my credit profile for me. That's actually not true, right? The credit profile is actually for other banks because, let's say you have $0 left over, and all this debt, 8 credit cards, an auto loan, student loan, and the mortgage. Well, the reason why this person would have bad credit is because it signifies that the bank who acts like a leech sees that your life force has been drained by the other banks, aka the other leeches, right? So that's really the purpose of the credit report, is to see how many banks, aka vampires or leeches, have sucked the life force, aka your blood, out of you, aka your income, right? That's the whole point of the credit report. You think the credit report's for you? No, it's for other banks to see how much they can suck out of your lifeblood, and if other debt institutions have done that, right? So, anyways, banks don't lend money to people who need it. Now, you might be wondering, like, why do we demonstrate this with a free and clear line of credit? Because if I showed you some real life case studies that I've done where people have maxed out lines of credit, we'd be here forever, 1 hour, 30 minutes. But you'll still get the point of this, even if I show you a free and clear line of credit. Yeah, that was a pretty beautiful live stream that I did about 2024, where somebody sent me their debts, and it was like 22 debts, $4 left over, and $5,000 of income. And I was like, "Whoa, this is smoking hot!" Like the PhD of debt payoff. Okay, like I've never seen anything like it. And if you want to see it, 99 cents YouTube channel. Okay, all right, you got to be a YouTube channel member to see that live stream. Okay, so now this is what we're gonna do. What we're gonna do is rank our debts using something called the cash flow index. So the cash flow index is just your debt balance divided by the monthly payment, right? And so you think of this as like a ranking or sorting system, and you want to pay off the small ones first, or the small numbers first, and then the large numbers last. That's what a good ranking system would do, would be in order, right? And so why this mortgage last? Because in terms of cash flow, I literally have to pay 330,000 for $1,500 of cash flow. That's not a lot. It's kind of like not a lot of bang for your buck. But you got to give the bank a lot of money to pay it off just to get the 1,500, right? Whereas with the 35 grand and this 30 grand, I'm going to get 2,000 or more than $2,000 of cash flow for only 65K. So which one makes more sense? Am I going to pay these 2 credit cards off first, or should I go all in the mortgage? Okay. I'm just going to follow the cash flow index. Now, I don't follow it to the T, I'm going to be honest. So if one of these cards is like a 0% card, I'd be like, okay, I'll leave it until the 0% period is over. Stuff like that, right? If the interest rate of the debt is higher than, let's say, my line of credit, I'm okay with moving it into the line of credit, even if the cash flow index is relatively high. Okay. So just kind of little things like that that I think, I might make exceptions for, but this is a great starting point for figuring out which debts to pay off. Okay. Now, here's the other thing too, is that we have to understand that this is not just about like us, about math. It's also a little bit about philosophy too. Because what's the difference between left side and right side? You look at the left side and right side, they look exactly the same. But the difference between the left side is that you're very intentional about having more than $0 in your checking account, because you see your checking account as the final destination of money. right? Whereas in the right side, you're really intentional about your checking account going to zero. In fact, if your checking account does not go to zero, okay, you're kind of ashamed with this method, okay? So the other thing too is, what is cash flow, right? So you ever study real estate investing, and you ever hear like the definition of cash flow is income minus expenses minus debt service. That's your cash flow. Well, our cash flow on the left side is literally what's left over to checking and savings. In the right side, it's about how much your debt gets reduced. Okay, so different concepts of cash flow here, and we're being very intentional about our checking going to zero without really affecting our lifestyle. Okay, so now let's go ahead and pay off some of that debt. Use that, follow that cash flow index. How much is this? Is 5, 8, 15, 27, 37, 10, 35. And I'm going to go ahead and sum it up. So that's going to be 137K, 137,000, right? Guess what happened? All right, guess what happened? All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, these payments went to zero because we just did a debt transfer thing like a credit card balance transfer. And then we literally went from $0 to $4,450.84 because we were intentional about our checking going to zero. Right? And here's the crazy thing, you might be like, what happened? Well, we just made the same income. We shifted the flow of money, right? And now this zero goes to $4,450.84. So think about that, right? Like, think about if, judges like Judge Nathan Milliron learned this strategy, he wouldn't have to file bankruptcy for 70K of debt with a $200,000 salary, almost $200,000 salary. Okay, like, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Anyways, so yes, we okay. 10 grand, same income, shifting of expenses. Now we have $4,000 cash flow. And I want you to stare at this and maybe talk about it to your friends. Take a look at this. In fact, there's one person I remember who sent on this channel like, "Hey, someone referred me to your channel, and I got hooked since." And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm a debt payoff addiction specialist. That's what it is. I think I'm one of the only people on YouTube where I can make a lot of people watch Excel spreadsheets for hours and hours on end. Because all I do is just babble on and on, like King Arthur, the Knights of Justice. I don't even know what I'm talking about that. All right. Anyways, final step to this debt payoff strategy is, because our checking account is not the final destination of your money. What we're going to do is put our entire income, just 10 grand, into the line of credit, take our expenses out, rinse and repeat over and over again. And after every single month, then the balance will go down about $4,450.84. Right? And so now, this is what we're going to do here. We're going to take the next month's balance, it's based on the previous month's balance, previous month's income, minus our cash flow. And then what we're going to do is take the average daily balance, right? We're going to take the average right here, multiply it, average daily balance, multiply it by the interest rate, and then divide by 12. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste and copy and paste. And then we're going to go here in 35 months and we're paid off. Woohoo! Hey, yeah, less than 3 years, right? Pretty good for starting off with zero in cash flow. And what was the difference between left side and right side is that in the left side, we wanted our checking account to go to zero, even though we were zero. The right side, we didn't want our checking account to go more than zero, right? We wanted it to stay at zero, okay? So now let's just go ahead and follow the next debts to pay off: auto loan, student loan, the mortgage. And we're at, 35 months? So it's going to be, 35 months. All right, so 35 months. And then this is going to be, what was the balance that we paid off? 137K. 137K. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So 137K, and I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. And then it's going to be the auto loan, student loan, and the mortgage. And this is just going to be 35 months. All right, so 35, 35, 35. And then now you take a look at these, and I'm going to tell you how the average person looks at this, right? They're always focused on the highest interest rate. They're going to look at that and say, oh, we should focus on the student loan first, right? Why would we focus on this 3% loan? Well, according to the cash flow index, right, this is the lowest number, and we're going to get more bang for our buck because it's literally just about 9.5 grand for about $400 of cash flow. We could easily get rid of it and get that cash flow and then apply that cash flow to this debt. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and move this into a line of credit. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now that's going to be plus 9568.69. And then we see that it pays off in 2 months anyways, right? But we haven't increased our cash flow yet by 400, but let's go ahead and do that. And then I am going to get this cash flow. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy and paste, right? And then it's going to be 4 minus 4, 846.15. And then this is going to be 37 months. And yeah, so 37 months, it's pretty much all paid off, right? So now we're going to do this right here. And then it's going to be 137 plus 22. And it's going to be 159K, right? 159K. And then we have our student loan and our mortgage, right? So 120K, 330K. And then at 37 months, what's the balance of these? Would be 37, 37. Okay. So now we just follow the cash flow index again. This is 0. We're going to pay this off first. Now, I do have some, rules of thumb. If your loan interest rate is higher, same or higher than your line of credit interest rate, it's okay to move the loan to the line. What's not okay is moving a low interest rate loan into a high interest rate line, and you get itty bitty amount of cash flow for moving big amount of debt into a high interest rate line. So that's why when you see this high CFI numbers with big debts, you get little payments. And what this is saying is, hey, if we move all this debt into the line of credit, we're going to get itty bitty amount of cash flow. So we're going to end up probably paying more interest, right? And so there's this method that we can even use an 8% line of credit and still pay it off. And there might be advantages of doing it that way. I've shown it that way. So the reason I show this is because I don't want you to fear an 8 or 9 or 10 or even a 15% line of credit as long as you know how to pay off the debt correctly, which is the right payoff order, right? So a lot of times, people will freak out 8 to 15, okay? Because think about how the housing market works. If the interest rate, whatever the Fed sets, it drops 1 point or it goes up 1 point, right? Then what happens is that the whole housing market shifts, and if the interest rate drops like 1 or 2 points, and now everybody wants to go back to the market and buy a house. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do here. Okay, but let me go ahead and pay off the student loan first from a 7% loan into an 8% line of credit. And because the interest rate is so similar and we're kind of at the end of our journey, it's not going to really make that big of a difference. But the thing I want you to be aware about is that 30-year mortgage. That's the one you got to watch out for. 71461.6. Okay. And then, okay, so now this student loan goes to 0. And let's pay that sucker off. Okay, so let me go back, zoom out right here. Zoom out, it's going to be okay, so now our cash flow is 6239.45, and I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste, and then we see that in about 53 months paid off. Woohoo! All right, 53 months. All right, so 159 plus 120, that's going to be 279K, all right? And then mortgage 330,000 in 53 months. What is it? 53, and it's gonna be 302,000, right? So 302,000, and so we're gonna use this method called I call it sweeping, right? So what is a sweep? Essentially, you're taking a piece of the loan and moving into a line of credit. So If you don't know, there are two ways to pay a 30-year mortgage. The only one I say that is not valid is replacing your mortgage with the high interest rate line of credit, based on what we talked about previously. Now, the first way that you can do it is something called extra payments, which is the default, right? Meaning that you make the monthly payment and then whatever is left over for that month, you just make it directly into the loan. Now, realistically speaking, your average person, will they overpay a loan or even a credit card? No. And the reason why they don't overpay loans or even credit cards is that the moment that you do that, you've introduced friction in your flow of money, right? Because think about it, even with the credit card, like let's say I put my entire paycheck in a credit card and then I have other credit card balances I need to pay. Can I use the first credit card to pay the second or third? Only if you do a balance transfer. And that's incredibly hard to deal with because you got to wait for like 2 weeks in the mail for the transfer to happen. And then you're a little bit nervous because you wonder if you wrote the right account routing number and bank account number and all that, or the credit card number. I know that's happening. That's why I don't do balance transfers. I'm like, no thanks, unless it's a sweet deal. Okay, but I always get a little bit nervous about the balance transfer. But yes, that is it's overpaying a loan is an issue too, right? You overpay a loan, like, okay, well, how to get your money back? You can't. Or you got to borrow money from a credit card or line of credit, which is valid. But then what happens? You segregate your income, right? That's something I'll talk about. So the reason why we're broke here is because when our paycheck comes in, it just gets split all over the place and then we have nothing left over. And why can we easily pay off debt is just because we just put our money in one place, aka the line of credit, right? And people really undervalue or underestimate that. They're like, this doesn't work. And I'm just like, all right, well, speaking to a guy who paid off a mortgage in 2 years and 9 months, so roll my eyes. All right. So, anyways, all right. So let's just go back here, and then we could pay it off with extra payments, or we could do the sweeping method, right? So let's take a look here, and well, let's do this. Let's move about 12 grand of the loan, like this mortgage, into a line of credit. So how does that look like? You just put 12 grand right here. So plus 1200000, and then you see that even in the first month we still pay off that HELOC balance, and then you see how about every 2 months or so you're paying it off, right? So this is what sweeping is. You just kind of move a piece of loan into the line and then do it over and over again, right? And this is an 8%, so we gotta pay a little bit for using all the bank's money, right? for helping us pay off debt. All right. So luckily we have this calculator right here where if we just input the numbers, okay, we just input the numbers, then it will tell us the debt payoff of doing this method, right? And let me just re-enter in everything. Okay. So what's the original balance? The original balance is, and I just gotta go back here, 330, and then the current balance is 302,486.98. So 302,468.98. And then the interest rate is 4%. Okay, 4% for 30 years. And the payment amount is 1575. Whoopsie. I'm not, well, I understand right here. So 1575. Okay, and what's the line of credit interest rate? We'll say 10, and then we'll do, did we do 16,000, 14,000? How much did we do? We're doing, 12,000. Okay. And what's our income is about 10 grand. So 514.92. So 10514.92. And then our expenses is about 2,700, or it is 2,700. Everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. 3.5 years done. Bam. All right. So, all right. So 7.92 years, and then we're debt free. And that's it. See how easy that was? Bam. I literally am the king of debt payoff, right? All right. Well, if you made it to the end of this video and you want to leave a comment below to let me know you watched to the end. If you're a man, say I'm the king of debt payoff. That's the comment you need to write. And if you're a woman, Say, I'm the queen of debt payoff. Okay? All right. Well, have a great day, and I'll see you all on the next video.